When I was 19, my doctor found a malignant tumor in my bladder. But it's funny. Stay with me, because I was a hypochondriac. And the funniest thing that can happen to a hypochondriac is that you get cancer. Because it confirms every fear that you have ever had and allows you to say to your family, "See, I told you." Remember last week when I was overtired and I thought I had rickets? Well, I was probably right about that too. There are gonna be a lot of changes around here. Irma Bombeck once said that there is a thin line that separates comedy and tragedy, laughter and pain, humor and hurt. When comedian Mike Birbiglia learned that he had a tumor in his bladder, he walked that thin line. Something in My Bladder by Mike Birbiglia. In 1998, I was driving home from college to see my parents for Christmas break when I stopped at a rest area and saw blood in my pee. I knew this could mean about 5 things, and 3 of them meant I would die, and the other 2 weren't exactly a trip to the Bahamas. It was particularly disappointing because sometimes when I'm on road trips alone, I'll have water drinking contests with myself to see how clear I can make my pee. So I'll drink all this water and I'll go to the urinal and my pee will be clear and I'll be like, bingo! So when it was red, I thought, oh man, I lost big time. I got very anxious. And when I get anxious, I sometimes get this shallow breathing thing where I feel like I can't breathe and I feel like I'm going to die because breathing is one of the building blocks of living. I pulled into the driveway about 1 a.m. and my dad is sitting up reading. He's a bit of an insomniac, and I told him what happened. And he got a very grave look on his face because he's a doctor, so he knows about the Bahamas. In the morning, he took me to see his urologist friend, Dr. Delvecchio. At the time, I didn't know what urologists do, but I'm older now, so some of my friends have gone for prostate exams. But when I was 19, I was very naive. In the examination room, the nurse had me undress and put on that gown, and I sat on that hygienic disposable paper. In the examination room, on the wall of the examination room, there was a giant diagram of a penis with all the parts labeled. They really cut to the chase in the urologist's examination room, and I tried to laugh. If this office were a movie, it would have been rated R. After I spent a few minutes staring at them, Dr. Delvecchio rushed in. He made some obligatory jokes about how bad my dad's putting was, and then he said, "Okay, Mike, I want you to put your hands on the table." I thought, you are darn right I can put my hands on the table. That's totally no big deal. I wonder why he wants me to put my hands on the table. And then he stuck his finger into the place where they do the prostate exams. And I did not see that coming at all. No amount of staring at diagrams could have prepared me for that experience. So I shouted, "Oh my God!" And then he said, "Cut the theatrics." As though I had intended it. Like, this will be my big moment. When he sticks his finger up my butt, I'll prove I should be the star of our town. I don't know how one is supposed to react in that situation. I mean, even if I were a robot, I'd be like, "System error. Oh my God." So the doctor said, "Listen, Mike, you gotta come in tomorrow morning for what's called a cystoscopy." And the doctors always dress this stuff up. He said, "It's no big deal. You come in, they put in an IV, you fall asleep, you wake up, you eat a muffin, you go home." And I said, "Okay." Still a little shaken up by the table incident. But what's a cystoscopy? Then Dr. Delvecchio picked up a rod about 4 feet long and said, "This has a camera on the end of it, and we stick it through your urethra and look at your bladder." I thought, urethra? I know I've heard of that part. So I glanced quickly to the wall of the giant diagram of the male anatomy, and I was reminded that the urethra is a minuscule tube to which I'd always peed in. It did not seem to have adequate room to house camera equipment or a 4-foot rod. about it, and I thought, I feel like you've glossed over a few details in the initial description. I feel like there was far too much emphasis on the muffin and not enough mention of the fishing rod sticking in my number 3 part on E's top 100 sexiest body parts. So, I woke up the next morning and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And my mom drove me to the hospital and the nurse put in the IV. For a while, she couldn't find a vein, and that's always fun. It's just a stranger poking you with a needle and you just have to take it. You're like, ow! Okay. Ow! Okay. Eventually, she found a vein. Apparently, I have one. While I was under, they found something in my bladder. You know, it hid them. So they decided to put me under deeper so that they could take it out. So they put me on the hospital equivalent of horse tranks. When I woke up in the recovery room, I was sky high with my mom. Which was not the first time in my life I'd been high with my mom. But it was the first time she knew. See, I don't handle drugs very well. If you've ever been in a group of people smoking pot, I'm the guy who's like, do you hate me? Why does my heart hurt? Is that rickets? I'm not proud of it, it's just what I am. So I woke up in the recovery room, but in my mind I was in a dance club. I shouted, this place is awesome, we should come here all the time. Dad's always here. And my mom was like, shh. And I was like, do you hate me? So, after I came down from the drugs, they discharged me from the hospital. And I still didn't know what happened. And on the car ride home, my mother said, the doctors found something in your bladder. Whenever they tell you that, it's never anything good like, we found something in your bladder. And it's season tickets to the Yankees! Talk about highs and lows. I was literally the highest I've ever been in my life, and then I was told I might die, which is like being handed a pizza and then being shot in the face. So I started crying. And because I was crying, my mother started crying. Because crying is like throwing up. It's a chain reaction. For a week, I had to wait for the results of the biopsy of the item in my bladder. So for a week in my life, I thought I might die, which is an incredible experience if you ever have the chance to try it. You'll start talking to God, even if you're not sure there is a God. You'll talk to anyone who might have more power than you because you really want to cover your bases. You're like, God? Allah? L. Ron Hubbard? The elephant from Hinduism? Harry Potter? I'm brand loyal to Jesus, but if someone has a plan, I'll hear him out. A week later, the biopsy came back. I was fortunate because while it was a malignant tumor, they had caught it early enough. I wouldn't have to take any further action except that every 6 months as a precaution, I'd have to come in for a cystoscopy. But it was okay, because afterward, I could eat a muffin.